If the 1957 Chevy was the king of the malt shop parking lot, what was the ruler of the open road, where the pavement meets the horizon and the social rules of the suburbs begin to blur? While the four-wheeled icons of the era were all about chrome, comfort, and family picnics, there was another mechanical legend rising from the asphalt. One that didn't care about your white picket fence. It was louder, leaner, and carried a rhythmic pulse that felt like the heartbeat of a new, rebellious America. This is the story of a machine that turned a generation of veterans into seekers of speed and outlaws of the highway. This is the era of the Harley-Davidson Panhead, the definitive engine of the rock and roll revival. The story begins in the dust and smoke of the post-war boom. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, the American landscape was shifting rapidly. Thousands of young men were returning home from the front lines of World War II, but they weren't all ready to settle into the quiet life. They had spent years operating heavy machinery under pressure, and they brought back a specialized set of skills and a desperate craving for adrenaline. During the war, Harley-Davidson had produced tens of thousands of WLA models for military use. When the conflict ended, the market was flooded with surplus bikes. These machines were rugged and reliable, but for the new American rocker, they were just the beginning. The shift from military utility to civilian freedom was instantaneous. These men wanted more power, more style, and a bike that reflected their own rugged individuality. They took those heavy, olive-drab workhorses and began to transform them, setting the stage for a motorcycling revolution that would define the look of the 1950s. At the center of this revolution sat a masterpiece of industrial design, the Panhead engine. Introduced in 1948 to replace the legendary Knucklehead, the Panhead was a revelation in engineering. It gets its name from those iconic, chrome-plated rocker covers that look like inverted cake pans, a design choice that wasn't just for show. Harley-Davidson moved to aluminum cylinder heads to help the engine run cooler. But it wasn't just the technical specs that captured the imagination. It was the voice of the machine. The Panhead possessed a distinct, rhythmic thump-thump that resonated in the chest of anyone standing nearby. It was a low-frequency growl that signaled authority. From 1948 to 1965, this engine powered the Hydra Glide and the Duo Glide, bringing hydraulic front forks and rear suspension to the heavy cruiser class. It made the Harley-Davidson a long-distance machine, capable of crossing the vast American West at high speeds, all while maintaining a mechanical soul that felt alive beneath the rider. But as the Panhead grew in popularity, it also began to take on a darker, more complex reputation. The 1950s was an era of intense social conformity, and nothing threatened that peace like a pack of leather-clad men on motorcycles. The media quickly latched onto this, and the outlaw image was born. The turning point came in 1953 with the release of the film The Wild One, when Marlon Brando's character, Johnny Strabler, was asked what he was rebelling against and famously replied, "What do you got?" A new archetype was etched into the American consciousness. Even though Brando wrote a triumph in the film, the image of the bad boy biker became inextricably linked to the big, heavy Harley-Davidsons that dominated the actual streets. The Panhead became the symbol of the outsider. It was the choice of the man who didn't want to fit in, the man who preferred the company of his machine to the polite conversation of the dinner table. This was the birth of the rocker identity, the grease-stained hands, the heavy boots, and the unapologetic roar of a V-twin engine cutting through the quiet of a Sunday morning. This sense of rebellion naturally led to a new kind of mechanical creativity. The stock Harleys coming off the assembly line were beautiful, but for the true speed freaks, they were too heavy and too cluttered. This gave rise to the bobber style. Riders began bobbing their bikes, stripping away everything that wasn't essential for speed. They chopped off the heavy front and rear fenders, ditched the massive headlights, and removed the crash bars. The goal was simple: make it light, make it fast, and make it look like nothing else on the road. A bobbed Panhead was a lean, mean fighting machine. It was a reflection of the owner's personality, raw, functional, and aggressive. This wasn't just about aesthetics. It was a way of reclaiming the machine from the manufacturer. It was the beginning of custom culture, where the bond between a rocker and his ride was forged in a garage late at night. As the 50s gave way to the 60s, the Panhead's legend only solidified. While newer engines eventually took its place on the assembly line, the Panhead remained the holy grail for the vintage enthusiast. For the modern greaser, the panhead isn't just a relic of the past, it's the ultimate canvas. There is a weight and a presence to a panhead frame that modern bikes simply cannot replicate. It represents a time when steel was thick, engines were simple enough to be fixed on the side of the road, and the act of riding was a genuine adventure. When you see a restored panhead today at a vintage rally or a rockabilly festival, you aren't just looking at a motorcycle. You're looking at the mechanical embodiment of the post-war American spirit, a spirit that refused to be tamed. The roar of the panhead remains the soundtrack to 1,000 movies and a million dreams of the open road. It's the sound of freedom, the sound of the underdog, and the sound of an era that refused to play by the rules. We want to hear from you. Is the panhead the ultimate Harley engine? Or do you have a soft spot for the knucklehead or the shovelhead? Share your stories of the road with us in the comments. But while the rockers were out there carving up the highways on two wheels, there was another side to the 1950s dream. A side defined by ultimate luxury, soaring tail fins, and the high rolling glamour of the desert neon. But while the rockers were out there carving up the highways on two wheels, there was another side to the 1950s dream. A side defined by ultimate luxury, soaring tail fins, and the high rolling glamour of the desert neon. But while the rockers were out there carving up the highways on two wheels, there was another side to the 1950s dream. A side defined by ultimate luxury, soaring tail fins, and the high rolling glamour of the desert neon. Next time, we're stepping off the bike and into the plush leather interior of a space-age masterpiece. We're heading to the bright lights of the Las Vegas Strip to look at the peak of American automotive excess. Get ready for the velvet ride and the sharpest fins in history, because next time, we're talking about the 1959 Cadillac Eldorado. Until then, keep your leather jacket zipped tight and the throttle wide open. This is Revival.